Thanks for coming. I am delighted to be here, and I would like to introduce my fellow co-panelists. First of all, I'd like to introduce Megan, Moulton-Levy.
Thank you.
And I'll let each of them talk a little bit about themselves, but also Minal Patel Davis. So I will start off and tell you a little bit about myself. As we just heard from Marty, I am the founder, and until last year when we brought in a new major investment, I was the CEO for TeamSnap. I founded the company in 2009, and I specifically did so because I was interested in sport. I'd been a tech guy, and I was interested in making the whole amateur sports scene easier. And that's what TeamSnap is all about. Let's hear your story, Megan.
Well, I'll tell you that these chairs weren't made for short people, that's for sure. So I'm a former professional tennis player, and now I have the great opportunity of running a junior tennis champion center in College Park, Maryland. I'm the general manager of player development, and I'm also an elite athlete representative on the USTA's board of directors. So what's really unique about the USTA and JTCC is we have a great partnership and collaborative working relationship. They set the framework, and we're the practical application of it. And you'll hear this throughout my speaking points later on.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Minal Patel Davis, and I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Human Trafficking and Domestic Violence. So I'll ask for you to come with me on this journey as I introduce my office and the link to what brought me here today. With leading that work, when the position was established 7 years ago, it had solely a human trafficking focus. And very quickly, I realized that we had to work with all of the systems that roll up to the Mayor's Office. So all of the different departments to embed anti-trafficking initiatives. And so this is essentially our embed policies kind of work. And so our health department screens and refers victims of trafficking now directly to services. We have a procurement department that uses our city's $5 billion budget to mitigate against labor trafficking. We also have built out multiple aspects of what's really a robust municipal approach to trafficking, and we'll replicate it to other mayor's offices and even to some places around the globe. Now, I wear a second hat, which is what brings me here today. I chair the human rights work for the 2026 Men's FIFA World Cup. We're a bid city, and for the first time, FIFA has required a human rights component to the bid. And so that's how we came across this body of work and what brought us here today. And so the City of Houston Mayor's Office will be the first government entity to endorse the Children's Bill of Rights in sports. And so we're here to announce that today, and we're really glad to do that.
Thank you. Okay, for the first question, I'd like to start with Megan. And the question is, why do you and your organization support the Children's Bill of Rights in sports?
So I'll use I have two different hats like Minal, and I'll start with my USTA hat. And I'll use our recently produced junior playbook to really tell the Children's Bills of Rights story. So we all are aware of the health benefits of youth sports. And what the Children's Bill of Rights is trying to do is make sports at the forefront of every child's life. And that's what the playbook is standing for too. We want to position tennis as a model youth sport. So hopefully you all got a chance to see the playbook, and if you read it, all of the 8 bills are really weaved and embedded throughout the pages. The framework is really built upon 3 principles. We call them the 3 Ps. So the philosophy, the play, and the play into competition. I'll speak a little bit more about those in just a little bit. Now, from a JTCC perspective, a week ago we were named Project Play Champions. So the Champion Center named a Project Play Champion. I think it's a perfect match. We're a nonprofit organization, and for most of our existence, we were just focused on creating high-level athletes. Nobody else really mattered. We, since 1999, our alumni have earned over $22 million in athletic scholarships. But in the past 5 years, we've had a mental shift. Our mission is shift. Our new slogan is tennis for everybody. And I'll explain to you what that means. We raise over $1 million to provide complimentary programming to veterans, wheelchair athletes, Special Olympians, and we go into underserved communities and we expose players to tennis. We bring tennis to them. Our community outreach manager was ecstatic when she applied for our Project Play status. She was, for the first time, we weren't talking about high performance, it was all about access, and that's the most important thing to us right now.
Great. Minal?
Yeah, so for us, we have a great leader at the City of Houston. Mayor Turner brings a very different kind of ethos to the city because of his own challenges growing up. I know many of you probably aren't familiar with him because we're way down there in Texas. But basically, his ethos dictates the things that he does. And so he understands that investing in children today is an investment in Houston's future leaders, especially with the vehicle of sports. I read the stat about 95% of CEOs have played sports in their lifetime. And so he understands that, and it's aligned with a lot of different things and a lot of different work he does around children's rights and just making the city a friendlier place for children, even through the UNICEF Child Friendly Cities Initiative. So a little bit about the City of Houston to help you understand our scale and scope. And we have our Parks Director here today, Ken Allen, and he'll be around later today too. But essentially, we're the 4th largest city in the United States. We're the 1st largest city by land mass. We have 380 parks and 165 green spaces under Ken's purview. And so there are about 125 organizations, youth sport organizations, and 14,000 youth playing anything from Frisbee to football on these city facilities. And it's a permitted thing, right? So you have access to them because they have to seek that permit. So it's aligned in many ways for us to do that and help formalize and help organizations realize the importance of the Children's Bill of Rights. And then also to bring it back to my work, if you talk about leveraging or harnessing the power of sports through programs like Coaching Boys into Men, which is out of Futures Without Violence, there's proven impact and reduction in gender-based violence. And so there's a lot that we can do, a lot that it can help, drive both of our individual missions. And so that's why we're engaging.
Great. I'm going to talk about first my personal reason for supporting the Children's Bill of Rights and then TeamSnap. So I founded TeamSnap, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, because I felt that sport was really important. It made a big difference in my life. I happened to have been an Air Force kid, so I moved around a lot, and sports were a way to quickly integrate myself into new communities. I also learned tremendous life lessons. I wouldn't say my athletic career has been like Steph Curry's, but I am the person I am partly because of sports. It was a big deal in my life personally. Thought it was a very positive influence. And TeamSnap, most of the people at TeamSnap are also athletes, or at least have been athletes at some point in their life. And sports is important to them. And also there's an aspect of enlightened self-interest here. We are a company that is devoted to sports. And we see a positive influence for our company on more people participating in sports, specifically children, and also for the communities and societies in which we exist, we play, so to speak. Sports is a big deal that we want to promote. Therefore, we're very significant adherents of Project Play's mission. I met Tom Ferry initially 2.5 years ago, and immediately resonated with what he was trying to do as an organization. And we specifically are backers of the Children's Bill of Rights in sports. I'd like to turn now to what are the specific things your organizations are doing to support the Children's Bill of Rights. We'll start with you, Minal.
Okay, sure. So the things that we formulated over the last month when we connected with Tom, we'll initially start with administering the State of Play survey. Our initial estimate was about 1,000 youth, but I was talking to Ken last night, and he has about a 50% response rate to when the Parks Department administers surveys. and they have 14,000 youth, as I mentioned. So now we think we'll be able to survey about 7,000 youth. We'll take that data, because it'll be very Houston specific, and try to go to the funders and get them to expand the way they're thinking about funding in this space or are currently funding. And if they're not currently funding, hopefully use it to persuade them to fund it, to fund youth sports in a different kind of way. So we'll do that. We're also preparing a presentation about the Children's Bill of Rights, the different things that are involved, and we're planning to present again to about 30 organizations, but again, after talking to Ken last night, I realized it could be closer to 100 organizations. Well, we'll bring this to them and help them go through a phase where they're realizing they probably already have a few of the rights in their practices already, right? So why not go ahead and take the step to formalize the adoption of it? Then we'll go into a deeper phase where we help them operationalize it. That'll look very different because some organizations will be doing background checks, some may not. So whatever it is, we'll go through a second sort of deeper phase to help them operationalize it in a more meaningful way. Then finally, one of the things we'll look at is, because the Parks Department has this permitting process, we're looking to embed something into that permitting process that explains the Children's Bill of Rights, maybe has 2 or 3 things for each one of the rights that people can check off, or either, we're not sure if we'll require it, but at least use it as a way to collect some data about what already exists and determine the landscape a little bit further.
Thank you. Megan.
So, putting on my USTA hat, I'll speak a little bit more specifically about those 3 Ps. So there's the philosophy portion of it, there's the play, and play into competition. The philosophy really highlights our American development model, which is a research-backed program that encourages coaches to really focus on overall athletic development rather than only tennis. The play portion really is, we all watch these young ladies speak about why they got into sports, what makes it fun for them, and they had the opportunity to explore the sport on their own. And the play into competition is an area that we've really spent a lot of time focusing on. In 2020, there was a massive overhaul to our tournament structure. So the goal of that was to make sure that there are tournament products or competitive products that match someone who wants a team event, matches someone who wants to go on and play nationals. So there's something for everyone, and there's a correct entry point to retain the players for their entire life. Now, from a JTCC perspective, our pathway starts with 3, 4, 5-year-olds playing on modified courts. I mean, this is a link to the ADM. They're really learning how to catch and throw and run and jump. They happen to have a tennis racket in their hand, but they're learning how to be athletes. And our pathway goes all the way up to someone like Francis Tiafoe, who started in our program at that age and is now 24 in the world, number 24 men's tennis player in the world, and is competing in the French Open here shortly. So we have all parts of the spectrum. So it's our job to make sure that our pathway from a programmatic standpoint and also a play opportunity standpoint matches every level of player that we have.
Thanks, Megan. In the case of TeamSnap, I would argue that we were supporting the Children's Bill of Rights before it existed. From the beginning of the company, we have provided software grants to worthy organizations. So we're a software company, and our software is used to communicate and manage, and we increasingly provide software to organizations that are worthy, number one. Number two, we now have almost 30 million users on our platform. So we are, in a sense, a media company. We have the opportunity to distribute messages to that audience. And one of the things that we've done since the beginning of TeamSnap is to promulgate positive messages about youth development, youth athletic development in sports on our platform. That means through our emails we send customers, in the application and web app themselves, and so forth. We also make direct monetary grants to worthy organizations. And more recently, we recognized an opportunity with Project SCORE to promulgate best practices by noting organizations that adhere to them. So we call this Project SCORE, and we're in the early stages of putting together a survey-based tool that organizations can use to understand where they are in adhering to the Children's Bill of Rights. And we're proud to be doing all those things. Last question, and I guess I'll start off this one. The last question is, what are we looking forward to with respect to the Children's Bill of Rights? And I'll phrase it this way and kind of go to a high level. I see sports as a unifying force in society, and all of us are aware of the current divisions in our politics and in our country, and I see sports as a way to bridge that gap. I was a little surprised yesterday. I think of soccer as a new sport and kind of an elite sport a little. I know lots of people play it, but it tends to be especially a suburban thing. And I was a little surprised when I asked one of the officials at dinner last night in the soccer world about how prevalent soccer was in underprivileged communities. And the answer back was, it's pretty much all over the States. That gives us the opportunity to have that unifying phenomenon, which we desperately need in this country. Over to you, Megan.
So I'll say from the USTA, we want to continue to make research-backed and data-driven decisions. So we're engaged with two different universities, George Washington University and Clemson University, to continue studying what makes tennis fun for young players. That's what GW is focusing on. And Clemson is really looking at how coaches are using long-term athletic development model and making fun, player-centered practices, what that looks like. And from a JTCC perspective, we're trying to get to Houston's level. We want 7,000 kids. We at the moment in 2022, we engage with 200 families in our neighborhood outreach program. We have about 10 wheelchair athletes who train in the Mid-Atlantic session, 3 of whom train at JTCC. And we have one young man who is my nephew, born 1 pound 13 ounces. He's a Special Olympian, and he's going on to play at the USA Games at the end of June. We want more stories like this.
That's awesome. That's amazing about your nephew. So Dave, you mentioned soccer, so we're looking forward to learning that we'll be hosting one of the U.S. hosting cities, hopefully, in 2026, of course. But as far as the Children's Bill of Rights, given the work that I do, it's very important to me about safe play and environments that are free of sexual, physical, mental, and emotional abuse. I am encouraged by the litigation that we're seeing and have been seeing in this area, the decisions that are coming down, because I think it's forcing a conversation about systems change, about making sure that organizations are looking at their leadership, their policies, and their duty. What duty do you have to the children that you're there to serve? I also think that the litigation is a key way to push good governance, because if we're talking about human rights, it doesn't matter what area of human rights we're talking about. Good governance really has to be the foundation of those conversations. And what we're seeing is the Children's Bill of Rights is trying to bring a structure and a framework that's really about good governance. So that's what we're encouraged by.
That's incredible. Well, I personally am highly appreciative of your organization's efforts and also my own company's. And I want to thank you for telling your stories and telling how you're supporting the Children's Bill of Rights. Please give my fellow panelists a round of applause.
Amazing, your nephew. Thank you.